The flickering orange glow wasn't just reflecting in my eyes. It was a goddamn inferno devouring everything I owned. My house, my sanctuary, was a roaring beast of fire and smoke, and I was standing there, phone pressed to my ear, trying to explain to Dr. Peterson's answering service that I needed my medication. Not tomorrow, not in an hour, but now. This wasn't a headache or a minor sniffle. This was my heart. Literally. Without my prescribed medication, my already delicate ticker was a time bomb. "Ma'am, Dr. Peterson's office hours are over," the disembodied voice chirped, annoyingly calm against the backdrop of sirens wailing in the distance. "He has an anniversary dinner tonight, very important, and he won't be back in until Monday morning." Monday morning. It was Friday night. My house was collapsing. My cat, Mittens, was still missing. A frantic, heart-wrenching thought that added another layer of panic to the swirling chaos. And I was being told my life-saving medication could wait because Dr. Peterson had a dinner reservation? The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. A hysterical, choked sound that died in my throat as a particularly loud crack echoed from what used to be my living room. "You don't understand," I pleaded, my voice raw, the acrid smell of burning wood filling my lungs. "My house is on fire. I'm literally watching it burn. My medication is inside, and even if it wasn't, I don't have a house anymore. I can't get to a pharmacy without a prescription, and I need this, like, to live." There was a pause, a moment of what I hoped was genuine understanding finally dawning on the other end. "I'll leave a message for him, ma'am. He'll get back to you as soon as he can." As soon as his anniversary dinner was over, I presumed. As soon as his perfect evening wasn't interrupted by a patient whose life was quite literally going up in flames. I hung up, tears finally streaming down my soot-stained face, not just for my home, but for the chilling realization that my life, my very existence, was apparently less important than a fancy meal. The next few hours were a blur of flashing lights, hose water sizzling against hot embers, and the kind faces of firefighters trying to offer comfort while my world smoldered around me. My neighbor, bless her heart, brought me a blanket and a thermos of lukewarm tea. "Did you find Mittens?" I choked out, scanning the charred remains, a desperate hope fluttering in my chest. She just shook her head, her eyes full of pity. That's when the first wave hit me. Not a panic attack, not sorrow, but a deep, crushing tightness in my chest. A familiar enemy that I knew intimately. My medication was supposed to prevent this. I tried calling Dr. Peterson again, voicemail. His emergency line? Another answering service, another polite but firm refusal. "Dr. Peterson is unavailable." The tightness in my chest escalated. My left arm started to tingle, a cold, numb sensation spreading through my fingers. I knew these signs. I lived with them. This wasn't a drill. This was happening. "I need to go to the hospital," I gasped to one of the paramedics, clutching my chest. "My heart! I need my medication." The next thing I remembered clearly was the blinding white lights of the ER, the frantic whispers of nurses, the cold, metallic taste of fear in my mouth. A doctor, not Dr. Peterson, leaning over me, his brow furrowed with concern. "You're lucky you came in when you did, ma'am. We're stabilizing you now, but your heart was under severe stress. Why haven't you been taking your prescribed medication?" I recounted the story. The burning house, the unreachable doctor, the anniversary dinner. The ER doctor's face went from concern to a hard, tight line. That's highly unethical. We'll get you what you need for now, but you need to follow up with a cardiologist immediately, and I'd strongly suggest you consider a new primary care physician. I spent the next 2 days in the hospital, recovering, trying to process the absolute nightmare my life had become. My house was gone. My cat was gone. And I almost had been gone too, all because my doctor couldn't be bothered to make a phone call. My phone miraculously had survived the fire, albeit with the cracked screen. When I finally got out, my neighbor offered me her spare room, a small gesture of kindness in a sea of devastation. The hospital discharge felt less like freedom and more like being ejected onto a battlefield. I was safe, stabilized, but fundamentally adrift. My neighbor, bless her generous heart, had given me her spare room, a beautiful, cluttered space that smelled like cinnamon and stability. It was a stark, brutal contrast to the smoky, wet ash that now defined my entire history. "Are you sure you don't need anything else, honey?" she'd ask, Mrs. Henderson, a retired school librarian with the energy of 3 teenagers. She was a saint, but I couldn't lean on a saint forever. I had a sister, Laura, who lived 3 hours away, and technically she was my emergency contact, my family. I called Laura that evening after the adrenaline of the ER had worn off and the crushing fatigue set in. I'd sent her a texty text from the hospital. House is gone, fine. Because the thought of talking was too much. "Oh my God, Beth, the house? I saw the news alert. Are you okay? Where are you?" Her voice was high-pitched, a frantic veneer over what I knew was a deeper, more calculated worry. "I'm at Mrs. Henderson's. The house is a total loss. And I had a cardiac event. I was in the ER for 2 days." I kept my voice flat, wanting to hear her shock, her genuine concern. A beat of silence. Not for the house. Not from my heart. The house, seriously, the one Dad left you? Did you have the insurance documentation? Where's the fire safe? That's where all the original papers were, right? My blood ran cold. Original papers. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm coming right now." But the original papers for the house, the one she'd always resented Dad for leaving solely to me. It was the only tangible thing he could give me, knowing my heart condition made a demanding career impossible. Laura, the successful lawyer, always saw it as a massive unfair inheritance. The betrayal was a physical ache, sharper than the residual chest pain. It wasn't just Dr. Peterson who'd prioritized his convenience over my life. It was my own sister, prioritizing her perceived financial stake over my trauma and near-death experience. It was the crushing realization that the only person I could reliably lean on was the kindly neighbor. "Don't worry about the papers, Laura," I choked out, a cold resolve settling in. "I got them. They're safe, along with the other receipts I'm gathering." I hung up before she could ask what I meant, a fresh well of fury driving me. The loss of the house was devastating, but the silence where Mittens should have been was a gaping physical wound. My fluffy, obnoxious, 3-legged orange tabby, who had survived a car accident with me years ago and been my constant companion. My shadow, my furry heat pad during rough nights. My local fireman, A young man named Jake had promised to check the site every day. He called me Tuesday morning. "Ma'am, I I found something." His voice was heavy. "It's near the back window, under the collapsed porch decking. It's a small patch of orange fur, ma'am. I think he tried to get out the back." The phone slipped from my hand. The quiet hope I'd been nurturing that he'd run off and was just scared, that I'd see a familiar orange flash someday, vanished in a single gutting word. I dropped to my knees on Mrs. Henderson's pristine carpet, the clean smell of cinnamon suddenly choking me. 2 weeks after the fire, a small item appeared in the local society page of the newspaper, which Mrs. Henderson still had delivered every morning. A picture of a beaming Dr. Peterson and his equally beaming wife, raising champagne glasses. The caption: Dr. and Mrs. Arthur Peterson celebrating their 25th anniversary with an intimate dinner at the Gilded Lily, marking the beginning of his well-deserved sabbatical. The date of the dinner was that same Friday. The time the picture was taken, according to the paper's caption, was 8:30 p.m., right when I was being rushed to the ER. I cut the picture out and placed it on the final page of the binder I was mailing to the medical board. Underneath, I wrote in blood-red marker, "The dinner he couldn't miss." It wasn't just a detail. It was the motive. It was the raw, undeniable proof that my life was a secondary concern, a simple inconvenience he was willing to trade for a perfect night. I finally walked to the post office, the heavy binder clutched in my hand. I didn't use the mailbox this time. I went inside, paid for certified mail, and watched the postal clerk place a sticker on the thick packet addressed to the state medical board. I was fighting for mittens, for my home, and for the life my father had wanted me to have. Most of all, I was fighting for the scared, sobbing woman on the phone that night who was told her life was less important than a plate of scallops. And as the medical board representative confirmed the investigation and his subsequent license suspension, a cold, hard sense of justice finally replaced the burning grief. He got his sabbatical all right, but it was one he hadn't planned for. He got a massive fine, and he got to spend 6 months staring at his conscience, if he had one, instead of his patients. The ultimate betrayal was the prioritization of vanity over humanity. And the ultimate resolution? I made sure he paid the price for that missed appointment, not with $75, but with the loss of his livelihood and his reputation. My survival became his punishment. Life became a strange mix of rebuilding and reflection. Mrs. Henderson's spare room felt less temporary with each week, yet I knew I couldn't stay forever. I found a small apartment complex across town, a place that felt neutral, unburdened by memories. It was a blank slate, and for a while, that was exactly what I needed. My interactions with Laura remained strained. She'd call occasionally, but the conversations were always surface level, circling back to money or property. "Have you gotten an estimate for the rebuild yet, Beth? Don't let the insurance company lowball you, Beth. You know how they are." She never asked about my heart or how I was coping with Mitten's loss. It was always about the value of what I had lost, never the emotional cost. Then came the day the medical board's decision went public. Not a huge splash, but a quiet notice in the professional journals and a local news blurb that mentioned a prominent doctor's license suspension. Laura called me, her voice trembling with something I couldn't quite place. Not sympathy, not anger, but a strange, unsettling mix of both. "Beth, did you really do this? Suspend Dr. Peterson's license? He's a highly respected doctor. What did you say to them?" I told them the truth, Laura. I told them he refused my life-saving medication when my house was burning down, and then he billed me for a missed appointment. I gave them receipts, hospital records, phone logs, even his little anniversary announcement from the paper. A beat of stunned silence. You kept the anniversary announcement, Beth? That's vindictive. Vindictive? I almost laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. He left me to die, Laura. He chose a fancy dinner over his Hippocratic oath, and you, my own sister, were more concerned about the deed to a burnt-out house than my life. What would you call that? Her voice went cold. I was just trying to protect your assets, Beth. You're not always the most practical. Dad certainly didn't think you were capable of handling things on your own, leaving you the house like that. That stung deep. The old wound, festering for years, torn open afresh. Dad had left me the house as security, knowing my medical history made traditional employment difficult, wanting to ensure I always had a roof over my head. Laura had always spun it as Dad doubting my capabilities, as him seeing me as the fragile one. The truth was, he loved me, and he knew I needed that stability. Her words twisted his love into a weapon against me. Dad loved me, Laura, I said, my voice quiet but firm. He wasn't trying to make a statement about my capabilities. He was trying to protect me. Unlike some people. She hung up on me then. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that our relationship was as much of a casualty as my house and my cat. The betrayal wasn't new, but its extent had finally been unveiled, raw and undeniable in the ashes of my old life. The 6 months Dr. Peterson was suspended passed slowly. I continued therapy, learning to navigate the grief, the anger, and the lingering trauma. I got my new medication regimen ironed out with Dr. Rodriguez, a woman who truly listened, who emphasized patient-centered care. She even called me once to just check in, a simple act that spoke volumes after Dr. Peterson's callous disregard. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter, spending time with cats. One scruffy, 3-legged ginger tabby, quiet and watchful, kept seeking me out. He'd lost a leg in an accident, just like Mittens. He was a survivor. It took time, but I adopted him, naming him Phoenix. He wasn't a replacement, but a new chapter, a reminder that life, even after devastation, could rise again. The medical board's final report on Dr. Peterson was sent to me. It detailed his reinstatement after the 6-month suspension and mandatory ethics training, along with a permanent mark on his record. It wasn't a permanent ban, but it was public. Any patient looking up his credentials would see it. Any hospital considering him for privileges would see it. His perfect, unblemished career was over. His reputation was tarnished, undeniably, irrevocably. I learned later through a mutual acquaintance that his sabbatical hadn't been quite as relaxing as the society page implied. The fraudulent billing charge had been investigated by his insurance provider, leading to significant financial penalties and a black mark on his ability to get favorable malpractice insurance in the future. His partners reportedly were furious. The sabbatical was less a vacation and more a forced exile, a temporary measure to save face while the storm raged. I never saw Dr. Peterson again. I never wanted to. But sometimes, when Phoenix curls up on my chest, purring a deep, comforting vibration, I think of that Friday night. The fire, the fear, the callous refusal, the betrayal of a doctor and of a sister. And I feel the scar on my heart, physical and emotional, a permanent reminder of how close I came to losing everything. But I feel the strength, the resilience, the quiet triumph of having stood up for myself, for Mittens, and for all patients who might otherwise be dismissed. I got my justice. I rebuilt my life, not with brick and mortar, but with fortitude and a three-legged cat named Phoenix. And that, I realized, was worth far more than any house.